Welcome to the Salty Platoon. How tough are you?
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Salty Platoon podcast. I'm your host, Felix Wolf, and today, again, we have the Gopnik Czar, the wonderful new microphone Gopnik Czar.
Hey.
And we also have our boy Aerobane, who has been going through chemistry homework, a bunch of other college bullshit, physics homework, and trying to get the event done. What did you say, easy clap?
Chemistry is easy clap. Physics? Fuck that.
And okay, so today we're gonna talk about what I wanted. I'm pretty sure I mentioned on the last podcast that I want to talk about the 9.7 Jets issue. And I think I have one question that I can actually just answer it right now, and I think it would go quite well with what we're about to talk about. Let's see, what question was it? Okay, it's from YouTube. It was a YouTube comment on the community tab post from the previous, or prior to the previous podcast, from user Yatesi, and he says, "What, in your opinion, is the next step or right direction the game needs to go in terms of content and/or features to develop and improve versus where you think Gaijin will take it?" Well, first off, since I wanted to talk about like high tier jets like 9.7, the Lightning, and all that shit, I think a good step in the right direction as a not really a feature, I guess you could say like a mechanic or something along the lines of what Wargaming has done with their tiers, where there is a specific lock on a tier, and they did it for, I think it's rank 4, if I'm correct. So you can't see rank 6 in rank 4 or tier 4, but if you're in a tier 5, you can see tier 7. So they have like a weird like matchmaking spread limiter. So kind of like that, but how it would work in War Thunder, considering that we have jets that transition from subsonic to supersonic, would be a battle rating cap where, and we already kind of have this with 9.7, but obviously with the Lightning still being a 9.7 and the J32 and the subsonic G91YS being at 10.0, it's kind of awkward. But there needs to be a hard cutoff, which would be battle rating 10.0 or possibly 10.3, where basically all subsonic jets are 10.0 and below. This first supersonic jets like the F100 and stuff would be 10.0s as well. Things like the first starfighters like the F104A, pretty much just the weaker one, which I think is only the A, would be 10.0 as well. The T2K is kind of a hard case because it has some pretty modern systems like Doppler radar and stuff. But I think if it was at 10.0 as well with the F104A, I think it would be pretty balanced, because the F104A would pretty much be the fastest thing at that battle rating. But depending on the combat altitude and speed that things are at, I think it would work out pretty well, because everything being capable of like we all know, because we all have the G91YS. I have the J32B. No matter what excuse you try to give, the G91YS is subsonic. It can't catch anything. It has decent acceleration, but you can't reversal forever. Also, the missile, there's missiles. So if we ignore that there's missiles, you might say, okay, maybe you can work. But there's 20G or 18G, 20G, 16G, 30G missiles, like the Magic, which is 30G. There's missiles that pull 6 to 10 more Gs or more than a pilot can handle in the YS, than the airframe can handle. So it doesn't matter which way you slice it. At some point, the amount of reversals you're going to do is end up in you getting slow enough to get a missile.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really have things like that be at a battle rating where they can get thrown up. The same thing with the Lightning. The Lightning, while it being 9.7, if it was a 10.0 and you had the F100 at 10.0, the T2, the MiG-19, stuff like that, where they're all these top-end supersonic jets that, again, you can say, well, 9.0s, would face them, and the 9.0s would get kind of clapped. But the 9.0 jet performance of a lot of jets in 9.3 and 9.7 are a lot miles better than something like the Lightning being 9.7 and facing 8.7s,
Yeah.
which like the MiG-15s, the F-86A5, those things have even worse jet performance because a lot of 9.0 jets can reach Mach 0.93 or 9.5. 9.3 like the F-86K, all the Sabre Dogs, they're perfectly valid aircraft.
A lot of 9093s can actually outrun a G91YS in level flight.
Yep.
So things
Actually,
being what?
Even the most recent jet that we got, the F-11, that can outrun a G91 easily at a much lower battle rating.
Yeah, the F-11, acceleration wise, I think it's pretty similar to the YS, but top speed wise, the F-11 can beat a YS any time of the day.
I think that all they would really need to totally fix top tier is 0.3 more BR and 1 more BR lock, where if you move all of these 9.7s that are just really too much for 8.7s, like the YS, because it still has crazy maneuvering energy retention and shit, you put that at 10.0, okay, you put a lock between 10.0 and 10.3, you put all of your supersonics with shitty missiles, so that's your MiG-21F, your Lightning, well, Lightning's not, it's decent missiles, but not good. You have your Lightning, you have your F-104s that don't have really good missiles, you got all that stuff, your F-100, you have that at 10.0, and then, or no, 10.3, sorry, and then you have a 10.3, 10.7 lock, and 10.7 up is just free-for-all. Anything that's too powerful below. So that's your 30G missiles, your Sparrows, all that crap.
Because like if the hard battle rating lock was on 10.0 and 10.0s couldn't go above 10.0 and they were pretty much like their own top tier, if the Lightning was 10.0, it facing 9.0s is miles better than it facing 8.7s.
Yeah, because a lot of 9.0s are fast enough to catch it if it screws up, and well, I mean, let's be honest, Lightning players are pretty good at that. So,
like me and Gobnik and Valtors, and I tell the guy in chat, don't turn. You just run away, turn around, and red top one of us. He just goes vertical, stalls out. I clip his engine, and he goes right into the ground. And I'm like, you're dumb. You're literally dumb. Like
Flex tape can't fix that.
Flex tape can't fix shit.
That's something they can't fix is people playing the aircraft wrong.
Dude, they have the aerodynamics of a flex tape roll when they turn.
Also, remember, the Lightning would be at 10.0, and so it would only fight aircraft like the F-100, the MiG-21F, the MiG-19, the F-104AC, the German F-104G. What else? What am I missing?
The J-32,
you could
the
even put the
MiG-19S, MiG-19.
put
the Japanese F-104.
Because the YS is perfectly capable of, it's not the best, but it's perfectly fine against the 10.0 jets that don't have really good missiles.
Jets
Because
that
it can
can't
outmaneuver
sustain
any-
Mach in like a really wide turn, basically.
Or even that speed isn't so much of a problem as it is with the missiles.
Yeah,
So if
what
you
the
have
red tops
all of those
or what, let me check them
9.7s
real
and
quick.
10.0s at 10.0 in their own encapsulated little sphere that they only fight each other. And there's more than enough aircraft to do that. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
red
what?
tops are 16G. Fire streaks are 13G actually. So even those are kind of good. Those I think were pretty shit, and then they buffed the
Yeah.
G load on them.
So then, what would be the top, like, below that thing would be aircraft like the F-11.
The F-11, the F-11 should be like a 9.3 or 9.7
and
aircraft.
the F-11, the F-86K, the MiG-17, which are all perfectly fine aircraft for 8.7s and such to deal with. And then at 10.0, you've got your supersonics, like proper supersonics, with bad missiles. And they only fight each other, and there's more than enough aircraft to do that.
Even the
there's
first
more than enough
MiG-21, the first MiG-21
Yeah, exactly.
F-13 is
The first
10.0.
MiG-21 should be in that BR. The Su-7 should be in that thing. The F-104A and C should be there. The F-100 should be in there. I really think the YS and the J-32 should also be in there.
Because currently, once they moved to the YS and J-32, it wasn't that like we're biased towards Italy or Sweden and that we want to stomp. It's because we know that they're the only two aircraft that are capable of easily countering things that the Lightning can do. Like there's nothing now. Because 9.7 is the battle rating lock, it prevents all of those 10.0s that are just basically barely Mach 1 breakable aircraft to balance it out. So the Lightning can just roam free. The only things that I think can beat it are honestly the Shenyang F5 because it's of its afterburner and the fact that it carries missiles, and the Scimitar, I believe things like that, or the Seal 13.
It's not a case of can they beat it, because nothing can beat the Lightning there. It's a case of how big of a fuck up can the Lightning make and get away with it. And against 8.7s, it's pretty much an infinite amount of stupidity you can get away with. You just point the nose up and you hold down shift.
Because I remember in my A4B video, I was catching up to the Lightning. I popped off a missile. He did a roll, dodged the missile. He lost so much speed. Right as I would have caught up to him to get him with the guns or a second missile, he just instantly accelerated away. Granted, that's an A4B. If I was in something slightly different. Like, right now, currently, the only thing I can think of that I could get in, that I own, that I could confidently counter a Lightning with, is the F11.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else off the top of my head. I'm even just searching through the tech tree right now. I don't really see much. Maybe an F-86K, albeit I didn't really play it. Like the CL-13s, stuff like that. The Entendard and the Super Mystere, maybe, when they're spaded. I didn't spade the Entendard. Super Mystere is, I believe, just a G suit and a Nord away from spaded. So performance-wise, that's done. But, like, mechanics-wise, to add something in that it wouldn't be new, it would just change, is just rework the transition of subsonic to supersonic jet combat. That would be a huge game changer already.
Yeah. The thing is, I think we all know what Gaijin probably wants to do next, which is faster, better, stronger jets with better missiles, right? That's what we've been doing every now and do. But they can't keep doing that while they still have this sort of
transition
everything that
problem.
is approaching supersonic all the way to the top tier is in one big cesspool. That just can't, it doesn't work now, and if they add like a bloody F-16A or something, it's going to work even less.
Not even as far as an F-16, even just a Tomcat
or just
MiG-23.
Or a MiG-21 BIS with R-60Ms. Or anything that has decent all-aspect heat seekers. Like, it's just, they've pushed it like past the breaking point already. Top tier is already broken. It's just that, well, it's still fun for the people who, like us, who have F-104Ss. Yeah, it's fun. But
people who have already flushed out their supersonic jets, people that aren't grinding are the ones. Like, I'm looking, like, the F-3H Demon is 9.3. I haven't flown it, but I know that it's pretty capable, and it's 9.3. It's probably 9.7 worthy. It's just all the battle ratings are all over the fucking place.
They've created this really, really unhealthy thing where pushing into top tier is just absolutely miserable because you just get clapped by top tier while you don't have top tier, which reduces player numbers. And the problem is that their whole shtick about, well, we can't decompress BRs is that there's not enough player numbers. But this is a vicious cycle, right? And they seem to know about vicious cycles because they keep saying, well, we can't do this because if we don't have enough players, it will increase queue times. And then queue times will drive people away. And so it'll be this vicious cycle. But they've created their own vicious cycle here of people get clapped trying to get to top tier, so they give up, so they don't get to top tier, so there's less players at top tier, so they can't decompress the battle ratings, so the battle ratings are compressed, and the range of aircraft that are just completely unable to compete expands.
And you can't please everybody, obviously. Like, you can't do everything right. But if a lot of, and it's not even just us, like, I know Spitfire, and I think it was Whoop-De-Doo made, like, a meme video, too. Like, most of the more well-known people that are known for playing top-tier jets, the people that know it the most, like, when a bunch of veteran players, when their own content creators, when all the veteran players, the people who basically own everything are like, even this own tier isn't fun for me, and I have shit spaded, I can't imagine what it's like for new players that reach this tier. And I don't mean new players in, like, brand new player. I mean new players to rank 6 or late rank 5. Like, it's when the veterans are concerned, there's obviously a little bit of not logic, what's the word? There's a little bit of credit to everyone's argument if the people who already own everything are saying that this is a problem. It's not like Gaijin sees just a bunch of people that they're like, oh, this guy just bought an F-86 F-35 Sabre and he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about because he just has 2 hours in the game. No, people who have played the game for almost 8 years now, because I think we're approaching 8 years. People that have played the game for that long are like, something's wrong. The F11 being 9.0 is ridiculous. It's way too powerful for 9.0. Obviously, not everybody knows how to fly the damn thing, but I'd say it's pretty noob-proof. You have 4 AIM-9Bs. You're Mach 1 capable. The F11 at 9.0 is better at breaking Mach than the J32B is when it was at 9.7 and now 10.0.
Yeah.
Like, at altitude, in a level flight, the F11, because it's a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, can push onto the sound barrier.
And yet they absolutely nuked it with a repair cost. So they acknowledge that it's doing far too well at 9.0, but they don't put it at 9.7, even though that's where everyone, or 9.3 or 9.7, it doesn't really matter.
The battle rating up tier would have been better than the
that's
repair
what
cost
everyone
spike.
is telling them they should do. I really don't understand that one.
My statistics.
Yeah, statistics. Syllabi.
For those only listening to the podcast, I want you to turn your attention to the screen for a few seconds, because what you're about to see and listen to is me in a 6 or so minute rant sped up to 400% about how Lightning players making mistakes and blaming other people's aircraft is one of the causes for the G91YS and J32 to be at the battle rating that they are. Yeah, like when it comes to Lightning players, people say we don't have Lightning players. Yeah, we also don't need to assault time in space like behind you and J32 with 4 missiles. I mean, honestly, like, every time Lightning players thought they could just go to 50,000 feet without Jason, it's like, hey, buddy, you've been 45 degrees afterward. I'm coming at you, already at maximum speed. We're already at maybe like 4,000 years, like 10,000 speed, sorry. Well, 10,000 feet, we're already at 10,000 feet. You pitch up, your plane is a fucking bus. All you have are your engines. Guess what? Your plane is not your plane is as high as the sun. My missile is not going to lose track of you. And to boot, missiles never have to. My missile that weighs like as much as a free sewer wrestler, okay? You know, I know something like that kind of missile. The difference between weight and propulsion is probably
One eternity later.
Hey, Steel.
What?
You've been ranting about the Lightning for half an hour.
I know.
Fun.
But that's the point. We're going to rant about. We are the salty platoon after all.
No. I don't want to rant about the Lightning because I've already done my bit. The thing's broken. It should go to a different BR. Come on, that's like, it's a given. I'm not saying it's okay that the Lightning is down at that BR. I'm just saying that we should probably move on because I don't think most people want to hear you rant about the Lightning for now. Everyone knows it's broken. Everyone knows it should go up. Let's move on to a different topic.
But mechanics wise, to fix that thing, 10.0 should be a fucking cutoff, and things above that, like the base, like the F4C Phantom, is a 10.3. You know, it's got slightly less capable missiles. There are 10.3 worthy aircraft. All the 10.0s are like pretty much just barely Mach capable planes that can like maybe 1.2. So mechanics wise, 10.0 needs to be a cutoff. It's the same thing for tanks too. Like in tanks, there's like with thermal, thermal is kind of the mechanic more so than anything for tanks. So on the tank side, battle rating cutoff would probably be, I'd say just in general there should just be a cutoff at 8.0, because 8.0 is when you start seeing darts like on the T95E1. I think 7.7s should not be seeing 8.0 at all, anything above 8.0. So battle rating cutoff would be nice. I do have another question that pertains to jets, actually.
We have like 3 more questions to get through in half an hour to do it.
Well, I didn't even know if you guys wanted to answer those other ones. We probably could have saved them for another time, because I wanted to keep it on one topic, but we got 35 minutes left, so we're good. Let's see. So the question is from Discord user F16C. He says, having recently got the F4E, the stock grind is horrific, and I just can't get any air kills with the gun. Do you think that top-tier jets should have missiles from the start, similar to tanks, starting with APF STS instead of Heat FS? I say yes. Because, actually, as a matter of fact, I think it would be even better. So on the F4C, for example, let's go to the F4C. It has AIM-9Bs and AIM-9Es. And then, obviously, you know, we have the Sparrows. They're a whole different ballgame.
Well, I think this one's quite simple. Every vehicle should have its primary weapon system when you get it. So, stock missiles doesn't matter below, like, 9.7. But once you get to the battle rating, where it's Missile Thunder, and your main method of getting kills is missiles, you need to have them stock. Simple.
Yeah, and it ties into the battle rating cap. Like, all the 10.0 jets, like the SU-7 and the F-100, their missiles are, like, kind of a secondary option. They're not a necessity. But on something like the F-4C, starting off with AIM-9Bs being stock would be like pretty good because they're still AIM-9Bs, so they're still basic missiles. They kind of suck, but at least you have missiles. At least you have that capability there, and then you would get AIM-9Es as the upgrade. On the F4 Phantom, I think that because it's just slightly more. I was thinking about this earlier actually when I read that question because it's slightly more advanced. I think having it keep AIM-9Bs would have been a cool option as well. And then having AIM-9Es and then AIM-9Js, or you could just start off with the AIM-9Es and go to the AIM-9Js, but maybe put the Sparrows in front of the Js. I don't know. Depends on placement. But missiles being stocked should be a pretty important thing for all these jets. Because, I mean, guns have become a secondary option since, like, what, the 60s? Guns were like a secondary option, albeit they did realize the Phantom that putting a gun on it was kind of important because you always need that as a backup. But again, it's still meant to be a backup. Yeah. You're not going to go with a Tomcat. You're not going to go into a long range battle with Phoenixes and say, I'm going to save these for later. I'm going to go in with guns first. Just doesn't work. So
yeah.
Having a system in where the most basic missiles on the aircraft, currently in War Thunder, it's a lot easier because they already have 2 missiles a pop. Them having the original one be a stock missile would be good.
Or I think as we get into the sort of era of total missile dominance, where your guns are really only for emergencies, right? I think we should switch from it being a case of you don't have missiles, and then you unlock your missiles, and as you unlock them, you get like the maximum number possible. It should be you start with your missiles, but not as many, and then you can unlock more. For example, say on the what would be F-44S, you start with the option to carry like 2 AIM-9Bs, and then you can unlock your extra AIM-9Bs and your Sparrows. Or on the F-4E, you get 2 AIM-9Js to start with, if that's the thing that it could carry. I don't know. But you unlock more ordnance instead of having no primary weapon, right? Because it says secondary weapon in the thing, but it's BS. The missiles are the primary weapon at 10.3, and then you unlock more of them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And even then, for the F4E, they could make it for like AIM-9Es being stock, and then you research AIM-7Ds, and then you go AIM-9J and then AIM-7E. For Gaijin, that's a little bit more work because they got to set up all the UI loadout bullshit, blah, 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 blah. But you know what would solve that issue? Just having custom loadouts, like in TCS. Just instead of making predetermined loadouts, guys, just like, okay, these pilots can take these weapons. You can, whatever you have unlocked, you can take.
And people are going to make the argument that if we do custom loadouts, that's going to break game balancing.
That's not going to abuse because planes have certain performance capabilities where they can't carry things.
You can't in DCS, for those who have played it. There's a limit on what you can put on an aircraft. Okay, you can't just like shove eight AMRAAMs onto like a fucking F-15 that's also got bombs.
You can't just shove Vickers into the fucking flare capsules and shit. Like,
no.
The A-10 in DCS, in DCS for the A-10A, you can actually take, I believe it's 6 Mavericks, and then you can load up every single pylon with bombs because it can make every single pylon can carry bombs. So you can make it all bombs, but can it take off? No, because you're not meant to put bombs on every single pylon. You're not meant to put Mark 84s on 6 fucking pylons. It's not gonna work. The performance of the A-10, it can't take off. It physically can't. It would have too much runway, and no runway is capable of supporting it.
I remember when I made an actual suggestion for that, and it was passed to the developers. And I remember European Canadian saying, well, if you did this, I used the Mi-24D as an example, and he was like, well, if you did this, it would be OP because you could just put like phalangas on every single rail. And I was like, no,
you can't,
because it can't mount phalanga rails on every single.
Yeah, no, you can't do that if the pylon can't do it. You can't put that weapon system on it.
So when you drop down the inner pylons, it would only have options for rockets or rocket pods or gun pods, and on the outer rail, it would only have options for empty or phalangas. And then if they want, they can actually have a much more nuanced spawn point system, because, for example, not all air-to-ground missiles are the same. Not all HGMs are the same. They could make a spawn point cost for each individual pylon's worth of a missile. So, for instance, Vickers and Hellfires could be hella expensive. TOWs, not so much. And that gives a use for TOWs on aircraft that are not as good. For instance, the A129. There's no reason to take TOWs right now. But if TOWs cost less spawn points than Vickers, and you could choose the exact amount. Well, if you've got hella spawn points, you can take in a whole bunch of them. If you've only got a couple, like, oh, right, well, I'm going to have to mix and match. Like, it would be, you'd have a lot more options.
You have to keep in mind symmetry because of weight.
Yeah.
Like, balance would be a thing. So they would probably have to, definitely for helicopters, they would have to double, like, the spawn point would have to be based off of both pylons.
Based on symmetry, yeah.
Yeah, so because it just wouldn't be possible. Like taking like a pot of toes on one side, you would have to balance it out with maybe like more rocket pods on the other side. It would be kind of wonky. So like things still would be kind of rudimentary, but that would just be for spawn point cost wise, or just the tier. Maybe they could probably code air to ground missiles into a certain tier. So like there's like 3 tiers. So there's like base, or maybe 4. There's like the base, like the SS11s, which cost like basically nothing because they're basically crap.
Like we shouldn't.
Then
get
you've got like the
bogged down.
toes, and then you've got Hellfires, so like things that still require a lock, like U2 like semi-active missiles, and then full-on fire forget like IRs like on the UHT or the later version of the Hellfire and stuff would be like the most expensive tier 4 kind of missile that would be counted like in their game file, their, you know what I mean, like behind the scenes basically.
Like, we shouldn't get bogged down in the nitty-gritty of how exactly it would work. But the point is, like, the difficulties with that would be very easy to overcome. There's nothing stopping Gaijin from using a system like that, except the fact that, it would take some time to figure out. But that is something that would be really helpful for, like we said, improving the stock grind, because they can have more options for what a stock aircraft looks like, and improving balance, and just making it so you don't have to scroll through a bloody freaking phone book of options on some of the later aircraft.
Yeah, or misclicking something.
The A4B.
They did a thing. They did the thing this patch. On this patch, they made it so you could favorite loadouts, but that still doesn't fix the core issue.
Which, I mean, that's very good. I don't want to be ragging on this change that they made recently with the better UI. That's so much better. It's easy to find the loadouts and stuff, but you still don't have the customizability. So I really like their new secondary weapon system. I think it's a fantastic improvement, but it's not where we should stop. They should
now
stop
on the
here
Phantom,
and say, "Oh, this is fine."
Yeah, because with that system now on the Phantom, you could have air-to-airs, bombs, and rockets all be on the plane at the same time, and you can cycle through them better than just the normal keybinds. So they did kind of set themselves up for better custom loadouts, which they may already have planned. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know at this point. If they do plan on doing custom loadouts, I hope they end up going through with it.
But people thinking that you're gonna slap fucking Vicker missiles all over something is impossible. You can't do that because the flare.
You can't like slap AIM-9Js on the hard points where the AIM-7Es go. Okay, it doesn't fit.
Yeah, like also
it doesn't fit there. Okay.
There's, like, limitations in the avionics to guide them. Like, I don't think you could just go and put like bloody 12 R60Ms on an Mi-24V. And then the other thing is, like, a lot of these ridiculous loadouts that people point out wouldn't even be that useful. Like, why would you want 12 air-to-air missiles on a helicopter or something like that? Like, okay, so you're just going to fly around and be a mobile surface-to-air platform, I guess. Whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, that you can still dodge the missiles from, by the way.
I think there's another disconnect, too, that people don't realize that missiles actually do weigh a lot. Missiles aren't that light. They actually kind of weigh a decent bit. Like, oh, well, you can just take, I don't know, what 48 Vickers on a K-52. Well, no, you can't. I mean, you probably could, but the weight, the performance, it would just be kind of useless. And I don't even think that would work. Pylon-wise.
Can the aircraft even support that with the avionics and the guidance?
Probably not. I don't know.
Yeah, no,
if
probably
there are
not.
limits to what you can put on an aircraft in real life, they will put those limits in or Thunder. So then once you've put like 12 Vickers on your KA-52, that option is grayed out in the drop-down box for any other pylons.
Yeah, that's it. You can't put more Vikers on. You can't do anything. You cannot put more of that weapon system on a different pylon.
And even just looking at the
either
K-52,
the computer doesn't support it, or the pylon just can't carry that loadout.
Yeah, even looking at the K-52, the inner pylons are a little bit farther away from the outer ones because you need space for the Viker pod, or the Ataka pod in the other case. So it would just be impossible. But even if they didn't want to limit that, there would be people just taking a loadout, and all of a sudden they're like, "Why can't I take off?" It's like, because you just loaded how many tons of missiles on your helicopter, and it can't fly. I mean, Arrow, you have the K-52. How heavy is it to fly with the S-13s, the Vikers, and the Iglas on it versus like maybe just the S-13s or a different loadout?
Well, I mean, I don't really fly it without any ordnance, but I will tell you that the K-52 is a bit of a pig. It has Hind vibes.
Because you're weighing it down with kilograms upon kilograms of mass.
Yeah, and it's a big helicopter, and of course the dual rotor thing doesn't really help because that takes away a little bit of your yaw authority, especially if you're fucking with the RPMs or the collective. So like overall, I would not want to be putting a large amount more stuff on that thing. It's already pretty uncomfortable, and the point is, it doesn't matter because you wouldn't be able to. They can easily make restrictions to prevent that type of exploits.
Yeah. Like the one thing I made Gomnick realize earlier, the AH-64D is honestly worse than the AH-64A because the AH-64D cannot mount AIM-9Ls.
Okay, I should probably clarify that. Me personally, I don't like the Stinger. It's a shit missile. The tracking algorithm is garbage. It's meant to be a surface-to-air missile, and they put it on a helicopter.
It's a man.
I personally, what?
Manpad.
The Stinger.
The word.
It's a manpad. Okay.
It's not true.
I don't like it. It's not supposed to do that. It's not like an air-to-air missile to be mounted on a helicopter.
Yeah, it's the same story with the Russians and the R60M/Igla. Iglas, like Stingers, are way better at killing helicopters because helicopters aren't going to dodge them, and they've got more.
They also have ECCRM or whatever it is.
Yeah, they have more hardening, but the R60Ms, and in this case the M9L, are way better at killing fast movers. Although I'm not sure how we got to this.
I also noticed how they integrated with the AH-64A. They integrated the AIM-9L into the secondary option because I remember, or maybe I'm thinking for the AH-64D on the dev server, it was on the offensive armament, so it like actually came as like an entirely upgrade, so they were always on. I might have been thinking of the H-64D, and oh no, it does it for the Viper too. That still exists, but yeah, but like the whole pylon thing is just insane in terms of people thinking like that you're gonna mount some super OP loadout
and your aircraft, and then realize you can't take off from the runway because there's enough runway space for aircraft performance.
Let's see. All right, we're gonna do a shorter question and then a longer question, and then we'll finish up because we got 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
So Discord user Nicholas Surge asks, if repair costs are removed from the game, would the game be drastically different or more so the same? Also, why are you gay? First of all, not gay.
Okay. We're not sure on that second part of that question.
Wait, why are you gay?
If there were no repair costs, Gaijin might have to actually balance their game. God forbid. Right?
God forbid they can't use statistics to balance the game.
Yeah,
oh no.
Exactly. Like, if there were no repair costs, they would, because there's a lot of vehicles that are too good, right? They were not okay. Like the STRV-122 was for the Injust time. There's a 2A5, soon probably the B3. A lot of the aircraft that are just, they're just, or not aircraft, vehicles. But right now what happens is Gaijin just slaps them with such an insane repair cost that they're so rare that they don't really matter because nobody plays them, because nobody can. And so what they really do is, instead of fixing vehicles, they basically remove them.
without removing them.
Not actually remove them.
And then when
but
people forget
remove them.
about it, and people that kind of play it every
Yeah.
now and then slowly lowers the repair cost, and all of a sudden it's at a playable state again, and all of a sudden they come out again, and they didn't because they didn't get the BR increase instead. Then they just do the thing over again.
Well, and the problem is that it creates, again, Gaijin really loves these. It creates a vicious cycle where, as the cost of playing a vehicle skyrockets, it becomes more. You have to do better in order to play it, which means it becomes unavailable to the players that wouldn't have done as well with it, and who would have driven the cost down. Right? Like the Italian tree. You cannot, or Swedish, even better example. You cannot afford to play the Swedish tech tree if you aren't doing well. So if you just started the game and for some reason you say, well, I'll just go play Sweden, you're not going to keep playing them because you're going to go broke. Whereas if you start playing the game and you play Russia, Germany, and the United States, which is usually where people will go, they're the main nations, they're the most iconic ones, the most fleshed out, then you're not going to have any problems. And even you'll notice that the ridiculously powerful vehicles in those tech trees don't get the same treatment because they don't have that vicious cycle effect. Everyone's still going to be playing them. And there's lots of new players that don't really know how to take full advantage of it. They're not really using the vehicle to its full capabilities, and it keeps the repair costs sane.
Yeah, because the minor nations also have just less vehicles in the pool in general, so you rely more on certain vehicles. Like when you hit Sweden top tier like me, what else are you gonna rely on other than a 122 and a 284? And you got the CV90s. Like you can't interchange. Like the Russians can just interchange out a multitude of T72s, T64s, and T80s. You get 2 MBTs, and that's it. Maybe take the S tank, which is suicide because of its jankiness of the problem. I wouldn't take that shit in a 10-7. That's suicide. You can't rely on that. The Italians a little bit more so. The French, you got one Leclerc, and then you're down to something with no armor and a semi-decent gun. So what are you going to do? And then because you have less vehicles, like the Leclerc, because it did good when it had the 5-second reload, and I mean, it's still a good tank, because there's only one of them, and it's a tree that's already harder to grind, because it's more of a veteran tree, its repair cost goes higher, because Gaijin doesn't take into account player numbers like that when they put their shit into their algorithm.
Or so we believe.
Or so we believe.
That's
We're
the other
not exactly sure how the hell they balance stuff based off statistics because they refuse to show us.
It's an X-Files level season here in Gaijin Entertainment.
Yeah, like the statistics are like the most carefully guarded secret at Gaijin. We know what they're developing. Usually we get leaks months or weeks in advance, but nobody has ever been able to secure the statistics.
Yeah, no one knows how the hell they balance anything.
For strategists, we got the secret documents, but we didn't get the statistic documents.
Yeah. Can we have an event where we have to mount an assault on Gaijin HQ to figure out what the hell kind of statistics they're using? Like,
It's a statistic.
If they would post like some sort of spreadsheet with information as to how they do it,
yeah,
I wouldn't have such a problem with it.
See, they posted the DeMar formula or whatever they used, so everyone was kind of okay with the penetration calculation change because everyone kind of knew what we were getting into.
Well, then everyone could see all of their mistakes and point them out, and it's like, oh, wait a minute. So how many mistakes are they making in these battle rating statistics and repair cost statistics that nobody gets to point out to them?
They can't point out errors if you don't know what the errors are.
According to our statistics, we ignore the fact that Lightning players have a tendency to turn fight.
Yeah, it's just, their use of statistics, all in all, is it almost smacks of arrogance to think that you can balance a game as complicated as War Thunder through nothing more than an Excel spreadsheet, and you're going to actually do a good job. Like, what? Has Gaijin hired the most elite of statisticians from across the globe to do this? Because this is not easy. It's not fucking easy to do that kind of... There are so many mistakes. Like, you could teach a class on why you shouldn't always use statistics based on Gaijin. Like the whole thing where they they don't understand that their statistics and the changes that they make affect player behavior, which affects their statistics. It's not this isolated system that they can just look at and study and then make these changes and not expect it to have any result and not to affect itself. Like, bruh.
Bruh. Oh man. All right, guys, I got a new statistic for you. We have none. We just kind of just been pressing buttons. They let the monkey get a hold of the keyboard again. Oh my god. Like, ugh. Fucking. I'm just trying to think, like, how do they? I don't know. I can't complete that thought. I don't know where I was gonna go with that. I had a big brain fart. I kind of wanted to go back what you said like a few minutes ago about how like you have to be doing good with Sweden, and it's true because Nate. I'm pretty sure Nate is like one of the people. Someone else on the Discord as well. Like Nate has played the game for so long, but he like didn't really play much for like a couple of years because of school. So like his main tree is Italy, France, and then he tried Sweden. And like he was grinding Sweden, then he realized that you have to like know what you're doing to grind through Sweden, because otherwise he was going bankrupt. He was going negative every game.
Yeah,
like, you can't. It's ridiculous that you do have to actually know what you're doing to go through some trees.
If you maintain like a 1-1 loss exchange ratio, you're losing mad money. Like that's.
To play Swedish top tier,
up.
you have to rely on winning with an ace game at the very least to break even.
Yeah,
unless you spawn in backups and you get more kills. It's better to spawn in the backups.
Which affects player behavior, again, which affects the statistics. Like, people will be more cautious when playing a STRV 122 than they will be in a T80U. Sometimes I'm playing my T80, and I'm like, oh, well, I took a hit. I kind of want to get a new tank. All right, fuck it. I'm just going to bum rush this guy. Oh,
literally yesterday.
Yeah, but you can't afford to do that in a minor nation's tank.
You die in
Ariete because you want to play the Centauro.
Exactly. I would never do
you
that.
You will lose money.
Yeah, unless I'm already spanking, I don't purposely J out of my Ariete to get into a starfighter. Like, if there's a helicopter, he either kills me or I go and get killed by a tank, and then I get into the starfighter. I'm not just going to waste my potential and just J out because I'm paying either 14... Yeah, because it's gone down for the C1 now, the first production. I'm not going to pay 14 or 17K.
Gaijin doesn't see that. They can't. How could you possibly tell that by looking at some statistics? You can't.
No, Arrow. I looked at some numbers. The numbers line up, okay?
Yeah, like...
They line up.
On tonight's episode of Bottom Gear, James May gets in a TAU. He fucking dies. He spawns in a T-72 3 times afterwards. Like, it's literally just, oh no, anyway, like, that's the Russia experience, because, I mean, the T80U, my T80U, 10K, T80B 6K, T64B 5K, T72 6K, BMP2M 1.9, like...
Yeah. I don't want to say, like, they shouldn't use statistics. I think statistics, they're very helpful. They can point you in the right direction here. They can look, oh, this vehicle is doing really well. I wonder why that is. But it should not be the do-all, end-all of all game balance ever at Gaijin. That's just ridiculous.
Because you have to take into account certain factors that they don't, which, again, is player numbers per nation.
It's like this trump everything all panacea of theirs. It's like, well, you know, someone writes like a freaking wall of text explaining why this is bad, and it's like, oh, well, yeah, but it's the statistics say otherwise. So that's it.
On tonight's episode of Top Tier, Russia doesn't give a shit.
It's like when they raised the F11's repair cost and they stated statistics.
But
how could they raise the BR if no one had the vehicle?
Yeah.
Or raise the repair costs. YouTubers were the only people that, and maybe the people that maybe have gotten it on the market for like a couple $100.
Which means
no, that wasn't even for sale. The F11 and Maxus weren't even for sale. That was like a few days into the event.
Which makes the unsettling realization either they're straight up lying about statistics and it's not a thing, and they just make decisions and say it's statistics, which I doubt is happening. I doubt that. Or they took the statistics from the community contributors and used those, which I really don't think
they don't take into account.
Okay, they're very skewed numbers if that's what we're going off of.
Which
because-
would prove that Gaijin doesn't take into account the amount of people in a vehicle.
I trust that
biggest
the
flaw.
viewers of this podcast will be able to understand without our explaining why that is a bad idea. I'm fairly confident.
You
I
want to
don't
bet?
know.
You want to bet some GE on that one, dog?
I
Yo,
think
I'm betting G on this one.
Fuck no.
Okay.
it's pretty easy to see why using the community contributor statistics to represent the entire player population might have some problems when you're studying, how well people do and stuff. What could go wrong?
But let's real quick look at the other side, because if we use the player numbers, right, and we'll take the G91 for example. If everyone starts doing really poorly in the G91, then they'll drive the BR down and the repair cost down.
Which is something that people did.
In the Lightning.
I'm still planning on that, by the way.
With the A6M3 and the BF109, there was one of them, which was over-tiered and cost an insane amount to repair. And so this was back when bomber damage models were extremely tanky, and they were running around in sim, shredding everything. And
Yeah.
so people were like, okay, well, let's get two birds with one stone. And so me and a whole bunch of people, we would just take out the A6M3, and we would just ram the first bomber we saw. No effort to kill it, just ram it. And it worked. It worked. Eventually, the A6M3 doesn't cost a ridiculous amount to repair anymore. Which just goes to show, like, you have to, like, beat them at their own game, which is just dumb.
I'm planning on doing that, by the way, with the YS. We're gonna do a live stream. We're gonna stream a whole
But
day
the
or
problem
whole
is
evening.
that when we play the YS, we know what we're doing and we're playing in an organized squad, so we still do okay, which isn't going to work.
Let's just
You
start
have to
ramming
fail.
people on head-ons. Slice their wings off.
Yep. Big facts. Let's do it.
Big facts.
Big facts, let's do it.
Oh man. All
Big
right.
brain.
Let's get to the last question here, because it's kind of a two-parter, because they were right next to each other, and they both kind of entail the same thing, and I want to talk about this for like we have seven and a half minutes, so it comes from two people, State But Small and Tim Tiggs, and the first question by State was, would you like to see the R3 T20 at a higher BR, but it would also receive its APDS belt? And Tim's part of the question was, let's see, actually, speaking of which, an actual question for the podcast with the R3 T20 in general, and I guess about other Italian AAs, blah blah blah. Hold on, let me read through this. So this was like quite a paragraph. Basically, what would you do with the R3 is like basically what he's saying. It's just a bit too much. It's kind of, I don't know, not truly a question, but more of a discussion. But it kind of entails into the whole thing of what would you do with the R3 is basically our question here. I'm going to have controversial opinion. I think the R3 going up would actually make it even better.
Well, Govnik, what are your thoughts?
I'm kind of agreeing with Steele here as to the R3 going up in BR, because if we take a look at let's suggest a BR, it would go like most people
say
up to, like
5.7,
5.7, 5.3. A lot of the vehicles at 5.7 and 5.3 are on the sides very lightly armored. The R3 would shred through the side of a Sherman.
But at the
Okay?
same time, it would be fighting players that are far more capable of dealing with it. Because
That's a fair point, yeah.
I'm
the
just
other
thinking
thing is
at
that-
lower tier, there's things like the KV1 that have balanced out the R3
there's,
pretty
at 5.7, there's things like the Tiger and the Jumbo, and those are even more tough.
Yeah. But
And
I
also,
just think about it.
Everybody has 50 cals at
Yeah.
5.7. A lot of people have 50 cals because, copy paste, everyone's got American tanks. So everyone has American 50 cals.
Yeah. But I was thinking,
So-
like, even then, at 5.7, you've got the M18s,
I mean-
you've got a couple of other light tanks, but I think
Personally,
6.7. Go ahead,
I
sorry.
would put it at 6.3 because Italy has a 6.3 lineup. They have a very fleshed out 6.3 lineup. They have, well, I mean, depending on if you have premiums or not, you have 1 to 2 Pershings, you have the two like wheelie boys, you have the Hellcat, you have the Sherman 5C in a pinch, M36. There's a fat lineup there, which it would fit in perfectly, and it would be well out of reach of poor scrubs who just got the game and are like, what the heck is this?
For player veterancy wise, yes. I think it's even worse that it goes up to 6-3 because the Americans have the Bulldog, the Scorpion, the T-92, the M50 Antos. They have all that shit. For the British, I mean you're gonna be pretty okay.
Yeah,
The
but
Russians too.
there's a lot of vehicles that can. I mean,
The RU-251s would cry.
And,
Oh
and
my god.
I'm gonna switch opinions here. I think going to 6-3 would be a really good idea for the R3. I don't know if I would give it the APDS belt, if I'm being honest. It is an anti-air, and it should play as an anti-air. It shouldn't be, Audible 70, Audible Blender 74 running around with TFS slapping Tiger 2.
Fuck my automatic and my
no.
fuck my automatic and my sidearm. I'm gonna pen the rear turret of an Abrams and ammo racket like a Gepard does.
Yeah, I don't think it needs APDS. And I think it would be more than capable against aircraft at that battle rating. At 6.3, it is far more potent of an anti-air platform than something like an M42. Far easier to hit and very nearly just as much damage. Time to kill going to be much lower with the R3 because you're going to be hitting 10, 20 rounds per time you're going to land a 40 millimeter, right? And in terms of penetration, they're not even that far off. I mean, 72 versus 53, that's a bit of a difference. But with the R3, you have way more volume of fire, so you can shred people's cannon barrels. I don't think the R3 would suffer whatsoever at 6.3. I think it would be perfectly capable of fulfilling its anti-air role. It would be better than almost any other SPA at that battle rating at defending itself against tanks because it can just shoot their cannon barrels and run away or flank around them. I think that would fit it very well, and it would fit perfectly into a lineup. 6.7, I think it would be trash because
nothing is at 6.7 in Italy. It's all 6.3
yeah, you wouldn't want
now.
to drag up your 6.3 lineup, but 6.3, it's got a lineup, and then also people won't say, well, Italy doesn't have an SPAA at that BR. Well, I mean, they really do. It's just that their 6.3 SPAA is sitting at 3.7.
Yeah, looking at it, like I could see it happening, making it a rank 4.
An actual 3.3 SPA or 3.7 SPA is the M42. That's more in sort of line with what you would expect in World War II.
Whirlwind. Yeah. I mean, I could see it happening. I think, personally, I think it could work. I just see me destroying a lot more light tanks and possibly some mediums than I do at even lower tier.
The problem is that's never going to happen, though, because we just discussed this vehicle and we did not mention its KD once. We talked about its characteristics, what it can do, how accurate is the gun, what features does it have, and that's what dictates where it will fit. But that's not what Gaijin is looking at. So this is a bit of a mute conversation because it doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
It could go up to. I could say I could vote for going to 6.3.
I just as a person who believes strongly in statistics, I think they should be looking at vehicle capability, not player numbers, because I mean they could use player numbers. They can. They can use those. I would just prefer that they use them as a guiding point, not a.
They don't take account player numbers into their balancing.
Well, you know what I mean, like performance of a vehicle, like KD wise. I
think whatever they're doing right now is like the best it's gonna get, but they need to take into account player numbers. Like they need to keep in mind and human checks. Well, Italy, France, Sweden are pretty minor nations that. I mean, people probably play them more than they do Japan now. I don't know about China, but, like, you got to think, well, okay, how many people are actually going to play this vehicle? How many people are playing this vehicle? Maybe it shouldn't be so drastically spiked up in repair cost or in battle rating or whatever. So a combination of the two would work. But, like, I don't know. It going up to 6.3 would work. I just see myself personally just going around just clapping light tanks up the wazoo, and I would have way too much fun. I'd have more fun than I would. At that point,
if it was going to go up to 6.3 and we were going to look at what it's going to clap, we would have to look at some numbers as to how many people play light tanks as FBR compared to mediums and heavies.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I can't. The other thing is, too, during events, Italy doesn't have good enough ground pound to use that to, like, cheese to a cap, get into an airplane, and pound people into the ground. They don't have a good ground attack that high up, so maybe it would actually be better in combination with. It would probably knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Well, there's my phone going off. All right, we've hit an hour, so Any last remarks, boys? About either the Lightning or the R3?
I wish Gaijin would just get all of the community contributors in like a Discord voice room and just hash this shit out and talk about it and say, talk to Whoopty and Spit and all these people, especially the ones who are like specializing in something like Whoopty he focuses on jets.
Yeah.
And then talk to them, because that is such an important connection between the developers and the game, which with the advent of the statistics, which I think started in 1.37, they really I don't want to be, but like they don't know what's happening in their own game except through the perspective of statistics, which is not the full picture, as we can see by all of these huge problems that are in the game. So I just wish that they would actually reach out to the community contributors and actually directly, I mean, obviously developers to them would probably be difficult, but to speak to them and reference them more.
Yeah, have a discussion. Have a discussion of what's going on with the game and how what they can do, because they made it abundantly clear that they either don't have enough time to play their own game, and to an extent I can believe that, or B, they don't want to.
That's why you have people like CCs to do it for you. That's the whole point. I have a new word that I came up with a few minutes ago thinking about when you said characteristics. I thought of a new word called character statistics. Our R3 videos get disliked by.
Have a calm, collect discussion in like in a voice room of what they can do, because if they just keep going the way they're going, me personally, no, that's it. I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm not. No,
it's becoming comical, the ridiculous of the things that are happening, like the lightning. Like, it makes for some epic memes, but it's not great for player numbers.
I also like how their target premium tier is 8.7, and it's mopping the floor with people that they want to get into the game to retain their attention, and then they instantly just fuck off because of the lightning. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's literally it's just irony. But I don't know, Arrow. I think that little mini rant of yours was a good note to end the podcast on. So, as always, everybody, there will be Discord link, War Thunder Live link, all that other stuff, timestamps. They're not going to be as many timestamps as the previous podcast, since we did kind of a little bit of less topics. They'll all be in the description. I bought the Merkava Mark 3D because I am an asshole who's impatient, and honestly, it's really worth it. Video on that will be out. Hopefully, that'll probably be the next thing after this, but it'll be as soon as possible. So, waiting on these two to get it.
If anyone was on the market watching someone buy it for $285, you know who it was.
Yeah, it was me. Hey, at least I didn't buy it for $1,000, okay?
No, you were just a quarter of the way there.
I just checked it. It's 187 Gaijin coin.
Congratulations, you've shot yourself in the foot.
You know what? It was fucking worth it. Because I'm spending all those shekels dinking on all the T-72s. I'm getting my money's worth. I don't care. I was getting impatient. I can afford it. I don't give a shit. I'm going back to work soon, so I probably won't be able to afford it after I get off unemployment, but that's okay. Alright, anyways, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I don't know what else to say. I'm kinda smooth brain. You guys keep making fun of me about my Merkava purchase. Alright, that's it for today. See you, everybody. Say your goodbyes.
Good job.
Bye.
There you go. Ciao. Shalom.
Ciao.